So yes.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our seminar, webinar / workshop / music event this morning at Georgian Circle, the Hive here in Wasaga Beach. We have people in the restaurant, we have people online, and we appreciate all of you joining us today. So in order to be part of the live music, you got to be here in the restaurant. 9 o'clock, we had a great special. If you're watching at home, in future months, come on out to join us here at Georgian Circle, the Hive here in Wasaga Beach. Great place. They're offering the $8.99 breakfast with unlimited coffee, and we're all wired up on coffee and ready for the day now. So there are two presentations this morning. The first is with Sean Willett. Sean is an architectural technologist, and he's going to be talking about adding units to properties. We will take questions from the audience. We'll attempt to take questions both from the in-person audience and also from online. And then I'll be doing a talk on mortgage investing and anything else that people want to know about mortgages. I've had 20 years experience arranging mortgages as a independent mortgage agent and mortgage broker. So without further ado, I give you Sean Willett. Sean, stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. As Dave said, and thank you, Dave, for that intro. As Dave said, I'm going to be doing talking about ADUs or accessory dwelling units. So I'm going to start with a little bit about me. My name is Sean Millett, as they said. I'm supposed to be looking at that, right?
What's that?
I'm supposed to be looking at that.
You can look here and you can look at the people. Can everybody hear Sean?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
Yes. Well, my name is Sean Millett. I've been married 41 years. I've got two children and 5 grandchildren. And I'd be happy after this meeting if anybody wants to see some pictures. I could probably spend an hour going over that. I've been drawing since grade 9. And for those of you who can see me, you know I've been doing it a while. I graduated from Mohawk College in 1984. So that's 40 years ago this year. So I've been doing it quite a while. I'm certified with HRAI in HVAC design, and I'm qualified under the Ontario Building Code, my BCAN numbers in small buildings, large buildings, HVAC, building services, and plumbing. And a little bit about my company. We're a full service drafting company. We design new homes. We do HVAC design, decks, porches, additions, all kinds of stuff. We help people with zoning and planning issues, minor variances, that sort of thing. We do both residential and commercial. We are full service, as I said. We go from concept to permit. And I kind of mentioned earlier, I got at least 35 years of design experience. Currently have 6 employees. And we're in multiple jurisdictions. We go from Toronto to North Bay and Aurelia to Blue Mountain and beyond. I actually have a house in Nova Scotia, and I'm looking at doing a 6-plex in Newfoundland, just through contacts that we've had over the years. So why create a accessory dwelling, an ADU? Dave's going to talk about this a bit, but potential income earning from your apartment or coach house, whichever you do. Helps you offset your mortgage costs, increases your property value, creates a both. It can create affordable housing for those in need. You can do that for your family. You know, whether they're your older family or your younger family. I have an example right now. I'm looking at buying a home to put a duplex in. The reason being is my son, who has 2 children, now needs a 3-bedroom house. So we're looking at doing that. And I have in-laws that are just in their late 80s that are needing a place to live. That, I mean, they have a place to live, but this place would be without stairs, a little more accessible, and also a little more social. Where they live right now, it's not a great area, and they don't have a lot of friends. If they were moved in this new place, there would be a lot more social activity for them, which is great. They need that. So those are some of the things you can consider. Having independence for yourself as as this property creates income, you can have a little more independence for yourself. Multi-generational living. My home that I have right now is a triplex. my wife and I live upstairs. My son and his wife live downstairs, and two of my grandchildren live downstairs. So it's great to have that. This is the son I also want to move, but I'm only moving 2 doors up the street, so I'll still have the advantage of having my grandkids nearby. It's a great, great feeling to have that. And just to give you some idea of how much experience we have, since 2016, we've done well over 30 coach houses. That's your backyard, coach house, garden suite, and over 300 apartments, including triplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes, that sort of thing. So we've got a lot of experience with doing this. Right. So I want to talk about apartment versus a coach house. Apartment, we can all kind of figure that's that unit in your house, it's attached to your house. It's whether it's a basement, but it could be upstairs. And a coach house or a garden suite is that building that is detached from your house. They're both accessory dwelling units or ADUs. They may have different names, secondary suites, coach houses, garden suites, granny flat, etc. But it's basically an ADU, detached or attached. Apartment versus coach house. Construction costs for a coach house are a little bit more money because you're building a separate unit, but you have some flexibility with it. Minimum, maximum setting, zoning. Can you do it? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but these are things you look at. Can I put a coach house on my property, or can I only do an apartment? There are some things we'll talk about. Privacy, obviously, a coach house is a little more private than a basement apartment. You may not like that. Sharing expenses, the utilities, that sort of thing. Designing an accessory dwelling, things to think about. Space efficiencies and layout. Does this work? I've been in places where they didn't give much thought to it, maybe because there was a window in the back and a window at the front. They figured, we'll put a bedroom there, we'll put a bedroom there, and we'll deal with the rest of the space. It's disconnected. There's a bathroom over there. There's not, good layout. You really want to think about how this thing's going to lay out. When you're standing in your basement thinking about how's this apartment going to look, think about that. Think how things are going to flow. Natural light, ventilation, things to think about. In your basement apartment, you may have to increase windows. So look at those. You need to have a certain amount of light, certain amount of windows in certain rooms. That's really. Accessibility. Obviously in a basement apartment, it's not very accessible. But if you did a coach house, you're thinking about, especially for your, aging parents or even a member of your family that might, a member of family that might be in a wheelchair or have an accessibility issue, a coach house is a better deal because you can make it flat or ground level, I should say, where a basement doesn't work. Consider privacy and outdoor spaces. Great. I have, this apartment, but nobody has room. I have a neighbor lives across the street from me. He's got a basement apartment, and he has allowed his tenants to have about a 12 by 12 patch of grass. It's not great, right? And he's got some issues, but he's a good guy. But anyhow, he just gives them that little space, and he's constantly fussing about it, So something to think about when you're doing an apartment. Am I giving that person some amenity space, something, a backyard, a side yard, a something, right, that they can have on their own. Consider separate entrances, basement apartments. Can I get there? Do I have to walk through share an entrance with these people, or do I have to, can I create a separate entrance? Other things to consider, and I may be talking a bit fast. I typically do when I'm doing stuff like this, but things to consider when doing, apartments or coach houses. The zoning bylaws, that's where we typically have to start. What can I do? What am I allowed to do? I know Bill 23 says you're allowed to do whatever, not the reality of it, but there are some rules that we still have to apply to. And zoning, I know some people will have some specific questions. Unfortunately, every jurisdiction is slightly different, so we'd have to do it on a case-by-case basis. But we look at that. That's one of the first things. For those of you in Wasaga, Collingwood, and certain other areas, conservation authorities, Wasaga Valley Conservation Authority, Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority, Sauble Beach. They have some issues or some things you have to consider as well. So those are some of the things you might want to look up or have us look up for you when you go to look at doing this. Ceiling heights, especially for those basement apartments. You must have, excuse me, You must have 6'5" clear after finishes when you're basement. So if you've got a beam in the middle and it's, really low, you can often replace that beam with something a little bit shallower. You want to go through the expense, etc. But you do have to make sure that you have minimum headroom heights. Egress windows and doors. Can I get out of that basement apartment or any apartment, whether it's upstairs or downstairs? Can I get out? Again, we talked a bit about privacy, common entrances. Most people don't like that. They want to have a separate entrance, especially if you're a live-in landlord. Many landlords say, I don't live there, I don't care. But if you live there, you might want to consider whether you have a live-in or not. Parking, driveways, that sort of thing, something you want to consider when you're looking at doing that apartment. It's great. I've got the room, perfect spot to put this basement apartment, but I have no parking or don't have sufficient parking. So,
And let people in.
oh, you let people in. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry for the interruption. Anyhow, it's okay. Um, when you're thinking about your especially your basement apartment, you're thinking about how it's laid out. We talked about dysfunction where there's a bedroom over there, bathroom in the middle doesn't really work. But also think about bedrooms over top of other bedrooms and living spaces over top of other living spaces. It's hard when you have a living room over top of bedrooms and the living people in the living room are move around and whatnot, and there's a lot of noise transferring downstairs. So you want to try, if possible, to stack bedrooms over bedrooms, bathrooms over bathrooms, living rooms over living rooms. Not always possible, but if when you're thinking about it, we try to do that. Access utilities, shut offs, that sort of thing. Can I access the furnace? Can I access the panel? Those are things that we look at when we're doing it. I talked a bit about exits and egress. That fire safety is probably the main concern for most jurisdictions, most building inspectors. They want to make sure that nobody dies. So they're looking at, hey, they don't really care about the layout, right? But is the fire separation in there? Is the exit, egress windows if needed, exit doors, are they there? They're the things that they're going to focus on the most. It's not something you want to get cheap on or try to work around, because if somebody dies in your place, there's always going to be a lawsuit. You just want to make sure you did the right things in the best you can. Yeah, so a bit about that. You're gonna need smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, in your units, escape routes, fire separations, continuity of fire separations. I wrote down as a note. This is a tough one because the city of Barrie, I don't want to be rude to Barrie, but the most anal when it comes to that. They're tough. So there's some added expense when you talk about city of Barrie and how to create these fire separations. We also want to consider sound. We talked about bedrooms over bedrooms, living rooms over living rooms. You can, in some cases, it's already drywalled, you're good. You can maybe put another layer of drywall on it and you're good to go. It meets the fire separation. But what about sound? Again, you're going to get, if it's very noisy, you're going to get tenant complaints. Great, you spend all this money on this apartment, but nobody wants to live there because the noise just travels. Okay, or what you get is not transient, but quick turnover. They're there for a bit. And they go, hey, I can't live here. This is way too noisy. I got to go look for something else. So it costs a little bit extra to do it, but get it done right, and hopefully you get to keep your tenants for. I don't want to say forever, but at least not have that quick turnover that sometimes happens. I know in today's market you probably won't get it to be quick turnover, but this market may not be that way all the time. But you also want to consider when you're doing your flooring, your finishes. If your flooring is going to be a hardwood, that's going to transfer noise more than say a carpet. I know we don't use carpet very much anymore, but consider that so that people upstairs are not transferring that walking noise, that stomping, that child bouncing a ball, all that to the downstairs. A little bit on coach houses. Excuse me. As we talked earlier, they're a separate structure. They're not attached to the home. Less fire and sound concerns because you are separated. So we don't typically don't have fire separations or even sound issues in a coach house. Okay. So a little easier. You also have some better flexibility with that design because you're starting from scratch. You don't have fixed walls. You can, excuse me, you can design it to what you want. There are some limits because you can only go so big in most cases. Potential for higher rent. Basement apartments, a coach house will catch more rent than a basement apartment. Okay. It also allows for more uh, potential customer clients or more potential tenants. People that have mobility issues obviously won't use a basement apartment, but they could certainly use a coach house, etc. Back to thinking about aging parents. You may be thinking about your home or yourself. Right now, I'm good, but 10 years from now or 15 years from now, maybe I want to live in that coach house and make it suitable for me as I age. You get more light in a coach house, a healthier environment. You can look at larger windows and doors on the building. Face those windows and doors away from neighbors. You don't want to be coach house to coach house staring, living space staring at each other every day. You just, think about where you're going to place it, how you're going to put their windows. As I mentioned earlier, a little bit higher income generator. You should be able to get more rent for that. Larger in size. Setback requirements. There was a question leading up to this or just before this meeting about setbacks. And I'd love to tell you it's X. It isn't. It's jurisdiction by jurisdiction and even excuse me, zone by zone. Certain zones may have a higher setback than other zones. If it's meant for higher density, maybe a lesser setback, but if it's meant for less density, you could have a higher setback. Again, parking, think about, parking, driveways, amenity space. We were talking earlier again about how close does that coach house or how close can that coach house be to the house? Theoretically, it can be right up tight to it, but we don't want that. We also don't want it from the building code point of view because we have limited windows if we put the two houses together. But you want to give the people amenity space, freedom, etc. Even though we don't care about sound, if the houses are really close together, there's still going to be outdoor noises, etc. that bother people. So we want to consider that. Consider outdoor storage for things like bicycles, alternate methods of transportation, bicycles, scooters, things like that. Especially in a more urban setting, you may not have a car, but you may have an e-bike, you may have a bicycle, etc. Look at architectural compatibility. Does it look odd? If only could put this really modern home in amongst all these century buildings. No, let's not do that. Let's try to make the design match. Aging. We talked a little bit about aging in place, but it is something that is important. Making places suitable as we age that it works for us. Because we're less and less trying to get mom and dad into a home, more and more keeping mom and dad at home or in their home. This might be a good opportunity to keep your parents close to you. That's what you want, and have them there. Okay. So that's a really, really brief on what an ADU is, what you can do. I'm sure there's gonna be some questions on what setbacks are or what can be done in terms of percentages and stuff like that. But I just want to talk a little bit about next phases or how you go about this design phase, permitting phase, that sort of thing. So how quick is this going to happen? Getting a design, getting a permit, getting that construction done is not quick. Okay. So plan, think about it, get ready to do it. What I would prefer, I would suggest that you talk to somebody sooner rather than later. Maybe you just want to get an opinion, whether this is going to work for you or not. It's a good time to talk to somebody and then go from there. The process, secure a designer. That's me. Okay. Give me a call. I can help you with that. We would do a site visit, see about the suitability of your property or your basement or your backyard or whatever it is that we're going to do. What can we do? Does it work? We would do a planning review. The planning review is finding out what your zone is, what you can or cannot do with that property, and what the setbacks would be, what would the lot coverage be, how big can you make this unit? There are certain jurisdictions have a rule of 45% of the main dwelling. So you couldn't make a big coach house. They're typically supposed to be smaller than the main house, and 45% seems to be a rule. There are some things that are 8% of the lot area, some are a maximum of X. So those things will vary. How big is setbacks? Parking, do you have that parking? You know, we got to look at, some people say, well, I'll just make the whole front yard parking. You can't make the whole front yard parking. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to put 4 cars along and be done with it. We can't do that. We'll get into the design phase, come up with a design that works for you. There's an opportunity to do some revisions, some discussion back and forth about, you know, I like this idea, I don't like this idea, or, you know, that sort of thing. We would submit the plans, or somebody would submit the plans. Typically we do, but you can do that process on your own. Then it goes to the planning and building department. So our process might take 3 to 8 weeks for us. Building departments, they vary, but I would say typically 2 to 4 weeks with the building department. If you've got to go to NBCA, hands up, I just add a year, you know, maybe 8 months, but you know, it just expect it to take a while. The NBCA and other conservation, I shouldn't just pick them. Conservation authorities in general have no timeline, no sense of urgency. They just, we'll get to it when we get to it. So be prepared for that. Shouldn't be in that. And construction, again, that can take a while, depends on what you're doing. You know, a little bit of a reno in the basement, you know, maybe a month or two. Some coach house might take you 3 to 6 months, depending on your contract availability of that contract. And I wanted to point out, in Collingwood, I know this is going out to a bunch of places, but in Collingwood, they have something that I thought was really, really good. They have what's called the Rapid ADU program. What they have is 6 approved designs. 2 of them are by us. They would only take 2 for me. They wouldn't let me give all 6. So, but I've got 2 of them in there. And what it is that the building design is approved. So if you pick that design, you come to me, you know, get your site plan ready. The fee is generally, because they're already approved, the fee is less. And when it comes to the building portion of it, we're rubber stamping them because they've already been through the building approval process. We just have to get through zoning and conservation authorities to do that. So that's one good thing. I think other jurisdictions should start that. I think it's an awesome idea. And these again are for coach houses, not for basement apartments, but for coach houses. Place like Collingwood, you can do 2 floors. Not every jurisdiction allows for 2 stories, but Collingwood does. Most of them are typically 1 story because they look at them as an accessory building, accessory structure, and they're supposed to be accessory to the main house. We don't want a towering accessory dwelling, you know, above the main building. So they're, you know, so typically it's 1 story. Excuse me. Like I said, we've got 2 designs there. There are other designs available on that site. We also have other designs for ourselves. So we put in a 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom, but we have other designs, bigger, smaller, etc., whatever happens to fit your lot.
Do you know what the website is offhand, or how do we?
I think you just go Rapid ADU. Collingwood, you know what?
The town of Collingwood.
The town of Collingwood Rapid ADU. Okay, and you'll see that there. So I want to talk quickly about challenges and fears. Can I build an accessory dwelling unit? I'd love to say yes, and generally speaking, yes is the right answer. Looking at Bill 23, Bill 23 said if you have an urban residential property, you can build up to 3 dwelling units. So what is an urban residential? Urban residential really defines it. It has to be zoned residential, and you must be on town water and sanitary. So for those of us who live in a rural environment, it doesn't mean no, it just doesn't mean it doesn't fall under Bill 23. So we don't have that as a right to build 3 units. So, now that does, yeah, as I said, so other jurisdictions that aren't rural, or sorry, that are rural, can allow second or third units, but they're not required to. I just want to make sure that, so generally speaking, you can do a second or a third unit on your property. Conservation authorities, depending on what hazard you're in, you may or may not be able to do a second unit. Okay. If you're close to the water in Collingwood, Mississauga Beach, you're not going to get a second dwelling. Okay. And you will never get a basement apartment in I shouldn't say never, but it's unlikely you'll get a basement in the Conservation Authority, because they have a limit of, they basically don't want a basement if you're in certain hazards, certain floodplains, etc. So it's not a no, it's just we got to work around those things, find out what you can do and can't do. When do I start communicating? Well, with designers and contractors, I would say soon. Of course, that's my take. But the whole process can take 6 to 8 months by the time you get a permit, etc. So if you're thinking about doing, don't come to your designer on a Monday and hope that you can start building on Friday. That is long gone. That doesn't happen anymore. But think about it 6 to 8 months ahead of time, and hopefully that will give you enough time to get through it. And like I said, if it's conservation board authorities involved, yeah, then it could take a lot longer. Okay, so that's really what I want to do. Just a really quick overview of what you can or cannot do in terms of accessory dwelling units. So I could take a question or two if you have them. Oh,
Okay, just making sure everybody's on. There was a question, I think it was, sorry, it was Mark was asking about the process. Now we had, it's actually in here incidentally, we had a meeting. Sean and I are both part of the Wasaga and District Builders and Contractors Association. We had Trevor Houghton from planning. I'll speak closer to here so the people who he was here. And maybe you can comment on this, but what I took from his talk, because we were asking about adding accessory dwelling units to properties, and what I took away from his talk was that even though the bylaw here in Wasaga Beach may be outdated and read as though you cannot do an accessory dwelling, that they would not block it. And that was what I took. What was your takeaway from that meeting?
that is about what he said, but what I got from it afterwards, because I think we applied to do this, that they still would want a zoning bylaw amendment. They would support the zoning bylaw amendment, but a zoning bylaw amendment can be $5,000 to $10,000, and again 6 months. So, yay, but not. And I
Right.
hope I'm not wrong. I think a phone call or email from him later saying that was incorrect. But it should be that as long as you're urban residential, that you should be able to do it anyhow. So, like I said, every jurisdiction's a little bit different. Some are for it.
Since for down every municipality yet,
Right.
because they're not, a lot of them don't have any kind of a bylaw that deals with that. I know that Wasaga is working on a new bylaw that will allow that, but that's when that's gonna actually come out. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
I have another company that I've spoken with that does that's required units, and they had a couple of projects that they wanted to get started and say that it was like.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that I'll say on behalf of the Builders and Contractors Association, that we would take that on.
Sure.
To champion that.
Yeah.
Because Trevor made it sound like, we're not gonna block it, you can do it, we just haven't had a chance to update the bylaw. So if we could take this program that Collingwood's doing, rapid approval or rapid ADU. And champion that, especially if we know that there are potential projects that are being discouraged or thinking, oh, we're not gonna bother simply because it's an outdated bylaw. Then I think that as from, I can speak on behalf of the association to say that we would like to champion that on behalf of, local builders and contractors and homeowners who would like to do that. So perhaps we can talk further about that.
Definitely, I think that there was a little bit of pushback to these people for what they were trying to do, right? Particularly concerns, setbacks, concerns, lot coverage, as if you had 600 square feet on your lot, it's an, having gone over a lot of space for that to build. And the other thing was parking, because there's no parking in wintertime in the city streets. So you have to actually have houses or the door, it's kind and also the whole issue of sewage connection, and the fact that if you have, that's the only line, and it has to have a separate sewage connection to the main lines, which is, basically tearing up, and in some houses, you don't have any way of getting to the school. Another type, because we already got your house over there. So there are issues, sure.
Right, so there are issues, but as I understand it, the spirit of Bill 23 is that we have urgent housing shortage problem. And that if certain criteria are met, that municipalities should not be blocking these things. So again, from the Builders Association's perspective, we'd be very interested in championing or attempting to, right? If there's something about a specific project that really doesn't make sense. But I recall reading that things that to the effect that the crisis is the housing shortage crisis is so bad that, like, especially if it's on near a major transit route, like, let's get it done and we'll figure out the parking later, right?
We have right now, there's a big subdivision of Sunnydale, I believe. And the issue there is that the houses go are not built with sufficient parking. And there is no parking in the streets and whatever like that, so that's become big, the housing.
Right.
Maybe you're renting out their basements or whatever. Yeah. So parking is just a nightmare, so.
Yeah.
It hasn't been like college everywhere.
Yes, right,
Everybody was doing a legal basement or whatever.
right.
Trying to do something.
Right, but I think it also depends on where you're located. So if you're near a transit route, or let's say you're near a downtown core, where maybe your tenants don't need.
Where's that?
Where is that? Well, I know there is transit.
No, I mean the downtown.
Oh, the downtown core.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the sense that, let's say you've got all your amenities close by. If you're within, a few minutes walking distance to shopping, Walmart, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And you as a property owner say, or a landlord say, well, you're not getting, this place doesn't come with parking, that's it. So, bring a bike. Why do we have bikes? On the winter that we've got, for sure. But still, we'd be happy to look at that. And so are there any other questions for Sean? Let me see if there's anything online. And
You can do that. Well, while you're doing that, I will want to address that parking issue for just a second. Under Bill 23, when it first came out, they said one unit, one parking space. Everybody went, from a landlord's point of view, great. A lot of pushback came from municipalities. So it got settled on 2 for the first unit and 1 for every other unit. So typically, if you're gonna do a triplex or duplex in a coach house, you'll need 4 spaces. There's a process, and some of you guys in the room might know this, but there's a minor variance process where you can go before committee of adjustment, get that reduced from 4 down to 3. We've done that successfully, to try to get that. From a landlord point of view, if that first unit is a 3 or 4 bedroom unit, and you're only giving them 1 parking space, it may be again tough to rent because they want 2. Now, maybe on paper you've met the 3, and you never rent that coach house to somebody with a vehicle. That's something you can do as well, but you've met the 3. But from a landlord point of view, if you don't provide them with the stuff they need, they may not be there for long, or they may not rent. Okay. Is there any questions there for me?
No, there was no questions.
Okay.
There.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you recommending the clients on for sound barrier?
We'll repeat the question.
Yeah. What we're recommending for sound barrier. So on a ceiling, I would recommend that if you had your normal floor, your joist insulated with Roxel, resilient channel, and 2 layers of 5/8.
5/8.
Okay.
Okay.
If you have, and that's a building code requirement to get to the sound, and that's the hard part. You get your fire rating with 1 layer, but to get the sound, you need that second layer of 5/8. There's another method of doing it. If you have like if you think about some of those older homes that have tongue and groove and then tongue and groove and then maybe some plywood, then you only need to get the building code, you only need one. Okay. It'll meet the sound transmission coefficient that you need. Not sure if it'll meet the impact, i.e., somebody running, on high heels, etc., or bouncing a ball, but you meet the code, but you meet the expectations of your customers.
Yeah.
Okay. Terry?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Sorry, and walls, insulation, drywall, at least one side with resilient channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Terry? Okay.
Okay, good. Sean, thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. Feel free to give out business cards if you want to people. Okay, so going to talk about mortgage investing and also anything that people would like to ask about mortgages. I know there's at least a few real estate agents in the room. A lot of people in the industry. We have some regular people who are not necessarily industry, but in any event, just an observation. So I think that's great. So what is mortgage investing? So mortgage investing is basically when people are not qualifying with an institution, a bank, or some other institution, and they need private funds. They can go to alternative sources. So, there's mortgage investment corporations around where sometimes people they invest with a mortgage corporation, and the mortgage investment corporation is responsible for doing the underwriting and looking at the deal to see if they want to lend people's money on that. But when you invest through a mortgage investment corporation, you don't have the same control as an investor. So the reason why some people really like mortgage investing is because they can see exactly what they're investing in and if it makes sense. I mean, when you put your money, in some cases, thousands, hundreds of thousands or more in the stock market. I mean, we know over time the stock market usually balances out and does okay over long term. But from one year to the next, you don't know what's going to happen. And how do you assess the value of a stock anyway? Do you know if you're paying what it's worth? I mean, the price of a stock is based on what the masses are doing, right? On their moods and their fears and doubts. They go up and they go down. What's the value of a TD stock? I don't know. If I look at the house down the street, I don't need to be a rocket scientist. I can ask a real estate agent, I can get an appraiser, and you can determine with relative ease what is the value of that property. And then you can determine how much you're going to lend on that property. So why do some people need to go to alternative sources, private lenders, instead of a bank or some institutional lender like a bank? There could be a number of reasons. So if you're going to lend money on a mortgage, you want to make sure there's good reasons, right? Because it's one thing to have equity in a property and say, okay, this property is worth $1 million. The person wants to borrow $500,000 on the property. Now, you may not have $500,000 to invest in a mortgage, but let's say the person has a first mortgage of $450 and they're looking for a second mortgage of $50. You can look at that and you could say, okay, well, my loan to value is the technical term. My loan to value on that mortgage request is 50%, right? 450 plus the 50 that I'm considering lending on a property worth $1 million. That's 50% loan to value. That seems to me to be a pretty good deal. Like, what's the chances that that property is going to drop in value so much that you're going to lose money? It's pretty slim that could happen, right? So you can assess. So when you're looking at a mortgage application, there's a number of things that you want to look at, right? You want to look at, is it a first or a second mortgage that you're being asked for, right? You never want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? So, if your grand total savings in your life is, let's say, $200,000 in savings, and somebody's asking you for $150,000 loan, I'd say that's a little bit too much. And, at one, even if the deal looks solid, right? Because, things can happen. But personally, I like the deals. I'll take a little bit lower rate of return. I have experience personally investing in mortgages with my wife. We have been investing mortgages for some time. I'll take a little bit lower rate of return in order to know that this is a good deal that I'm not going to have problems with. Okay. Now, there are some lenders out there uh, who don't care if the borrower is going to be able to service the debt or not. They're comfortable that there's equity, and they know that they may have to take action. You also have to, when you're a private lender, you have to think there's a possibility that I may have to hire a lawyer, and there could be a period of time when I'm not getting paid. And if I'm in second position, I might want to be paying the first mortgagee's payments because maybe he's not getting paid, because I'd rather do the power of sale than the first mortgagee. And that way I'm in control, because the first mortgagee is doing the power of sale and you're in second position. You might still be okay, but they're in control of what that final selling price is. I mean, they're supposed to sell it at market value, but at the end of the day, they're really just want to make sure their behind is covered. Okay. Now, hopefully all that doesn't happen. I've never personally loaned on a mortgage deal and had to take action. I had to threaten once to take action, but that was only on a deal where I put a mortgage on it, on the property, because they didn't have enough money to pay my fee. I was on my brokerage fee, and the only way I could get paid was if I registered a mortgage. So it took more than 2 years to get paid. But of course, any minor legals, and of course, all interest was paid eventually, and so on. Let me just make sure we got it. Okay, we're good. So that's rate of returns. I mean, you can earn, I would say, anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 to 15% returns investing in mortgages. Obviously, higher return, the more the risk. So you got to be prepared to deal with certain things. If you're investing in a mortgage opportunity that is going to be considered high risk, as I said, you got to be prepared if you have to take action. So there's always got to be a good exit strategy, right? Because if somebody's looking for private money, they're not qualifying at the bank. So why aren't they qualifying at the bank? So that's what, I mean, that's what we always need to know. And we want to know what's going on here, right? If somebody can't afford to pay their mortgage, let's say, maybe they should just sell the property. But maybe there is an exit strategy. Somebody has lost their job. They may be employable, and have a job offer, or they may be selling another property and they're going to have equity coming, or they've got an inheritance coming. They're just waiting for it to settle. Or maybe somebody is buying a property that's in a state of disrepair, and the bank won't lend on it because it's a mess, and they know that there's not going to be any income generated from it immediately. And this is maybe a pretty sophisticated borrower, could be a builder or contractor or somebody who has experience fixing up properties. So they might need private money. So you want to make sure that if this is the plan, that it's a good plan. What are they planning to do? What's the current? Because when you lend, you're lending on the current value. So if it's in a state of disrepair, you need to know, okay, well, what's the cost to bring it up to the proper value? How much is the property, the borrower or the property buyer going to make? Do they have experience fixing up properties? You want to know that there's a good plan in place to fix it up, and that there's enough equity. They should have skin in the game. Okay, I know guys that are fixing up properties and they're getting mortgage money, and they don't put any of their own money into it. if I'm going to lend on a mortgage, I want to know that whoever is buying the property or whoever owns the property has some skin in the game. And obviously, owner occupied, they're living in it. It's always considered less risk than a rental property or an investment property. But rental properties are okay, not a problem. How marketable is the property? That's key, right? I've seen mortgage applications like everything looks good, but the property's in like very rural. Well, in some small towns, it can be very hard to sell a property. It can be sitting on the market, even despite what the appraisal says. The appraisal might say the property's worth this much. Loan to value is very good, could be even 50%, but marketability could be an issue in small towns. So you want to know if our property's moving, how long is it going to take to sell? Because you can be sitting with the property for a year or more without getting paid if the borrower's not meeting their obligations. So that's key. Property marketability is key. Syndicated mortgages. So basically, a syndicated mortgage is whenever you have more than one person on a loan, simply. So I've been thinking of starting up maybe like a mortgage investment club to attract both investors and borrowers. And we can evaluate deals together. I would put some of my own money into the deal, and maybe we could get a group of people. I will tell you that I don't generally have a problem finding money for deals. There is lots of money out there for mortgage deals. Okay, people really do like investing in mortgages. But as a way to build my network and find more borrowers as well. So if we had if anyone was interested, hypothetically, a mortgage investment club, let's say, people are also keeping their eye out for potential borrowers, and then we as a group could assess the mortgage investment opportunity, and people can put in a little or a lot if we can fund the deal ourselves. So that's an idea that I've had for a while, and I'm just mentioning that to you guys here. I also sell private investments. I'm a licensed dealing representative. So people invest with me for apartment building REITs, real estate investment trusts. But that's a different topic altogether. If you want information on that, we can speak offline about that. I promise no sales pitches here today. We're just here to educate, network, get to know some people. Are there any questions about anything that I have talked about or anything at all with respect to mortgages?
David,
Yes.
rate of return, is that pretty consistent despite the lending rate right now? And like 7 up to 10%.
Yeah, I mean, with rates higher now than they were, let's say, 2 years ago, private lenders are also charging more for sure because their cost of money is up and their investors are expecting a higher return. So, I mean, look, you can get 5% return on a GIC right now. Yeah. Now, the other thing about private mortgage investing, and you didn't hear this from me, but if you're not investing with a mortgage investment corporation, there's no T-slips coming in. So whether you choose to report that on your tax return as income, because if you do report it, it's considered interest income. It's the worst kind of tax treatment ever. So I'm not advocating for, not paying. I'm just telling you that no T-slips come in. So unless you get audited, CRA would not have any way to know that what that income was. Just as a side note.
Also, if I give you 100,000 towards a mortgage, private lending, someone who's doing the vetting, you yourself, or is it a group, or how involved is the lender?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So if we were to find a group of people to start, let's say, a mortgage investment club, I mean, I would do I would offer my expertise to the club to help vet those deals. And, it would be do like case studies, right? Is this a good deal? Is it a bad deal? Why do we like it? Why don't we like it? What are the risks? Now, when you invest with a group, there is one additional, call it a risk, inconvenience, whatever, that you need to consider. And that is that you don't have no one person unless the group agrees to hand over decision making to a single person in the group. And by the way, I don't do mortgage administration. I mean, I loan on some deals here and there, so I administer the deals that I do. But what I mean by that is, if you have a lot of mortgages that you've loaned on as a group, and one investor owns 10% of the mortgage, another investor owns 50%. I mean, some resources are going to be required there too um, uh, to not only deal with the borrowers, collecting the checks and doing the accounting, and maybe enforcement is required. So some decisions need to be made, and so it'd be good to have, say, an accountant, and maybe initially an administrator's not. I mean, I don't know. I haven't worked out all the details. I just figured that I do mortgage investing. I like networking and the idea of building my business further, and I've always liked the private business. So I think so it's just it's in the early stages, but I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, even more specifically, how about the deal you've done with you and your wife?
Right.
Those just the areas figuring it out, bringing the money, or how's that?
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say somebody from the group brought a deal to the table, right? A deal to the table.
Someone you're own.
Okay. So if I give an example of some of my own, I mean, um, so one mortgage that I'm holding right now with my wife is she's a real estate agent who I've known for many years. I've arranged many mortgages for her and her family, mostly institutional. But there was a health problem in the family, so she got kind of sidetracked dealing with somebody who had a medical issue and had a slower year in real estate, and so she needed a second mortgage. So we loaned her, I think it was 80 or $100,000 together, my wife and I. I gave her, I think it was a pretty good rate, 10% rate, but there was lots of, like, the loan to value is around 55 or 60%. So there's a lot of equity in the property. The borrower has good credit, has always paid their bills, and I know that she has the ability to generate the income in order to service the debt, even though her last year was quieter. And also, I know she's the type of person that if things did get worse, she would sell the property, because if somebody, let's say, their plan to repay you doesn't work out, they can always sell the property and you get paid back then. So that's part of knowing who you're lending to, that this is not a person that's on a downward path, that they're hopefully on an upward path, and you're lending to them before they get to where they're going. But the type of person who would sell the property. So, because I don't want to be, if I had to, I would obviously take action, and it wouldn't be the end of the world when there's a lot of equity in the property. It's nothing to panic over, but any responsible homeowner or property owner, especially if there's equity in the property, if they can't pay, they should be selling the property, because otherwise they're just going to be running up legal fees and late fees. I mean, they're going to be ultimately responsible for paying all of your legal costs, right? If you do have to enforce whatever legal costs there are, and there are many costs that they will incur, and some private lenders don't mind at all, frankly, when that happens, because that's when they make even more money on penalties. Yeah. that answer the question?
So you and your wife are perfectly capable of vetting, just on your own without needing anyone else, really.
Yeah, I'm capable of vetting a deal because that's what I've been doing for 20 years.
And
Okay, I've specialized in alternative lending from the very beginning. I mean, I can do the bank deals. I'm happy to do the bank deals, but early on in my business, I realized that as a mortgage broker, I mean, banks, when you're dealing with a bank, some borrowers, they just want the lowest rate. They call you up on the phone. What's your best rate? I mean, our rates are competitive. Sometimes they're lower, sometimes they're a little bit higher. If a bank wants to win a deal, I mean, they've got very deep pockets, right? So they'll just cut your throat as a mortgage broker. You could be working on a deal for a year. So hopefully there's some loyalty when, we as mortgage professionals offer good service and good advice, and it doesn't happen much. But yes, I learned early on that as a mortgage broker, alternative lending is an area where I need to learn. So I never shied away from more difficult mortgage opportunities because I figure it's always an opportunity to learn what's good about the deal, what's bad about the deal. So yes, absolutely, I can help, and that's why I say if I was to start, whoever is interested wants to start a mortgage investment club, I would put my own money in any deal. Okay, that I say yes, I like this deal. I don't have unlimited funds personally, but even if I'm putting in some money, as opposed to only taking out money and getting a fee, right? And whoever brings deals to the table, they can participate and get a finder's fee too, right? Like, so there's an incentive for people to. So it could be a monthly thing that says, mortgage investment club for borrowers and investors. So borrowers could also look at it and say, oh, it may be a way to generate. And it's one idea. I'm happy to chat with you about it further for anybody who's interested. Oh, and mortgage investing is also RSP and TFSA eligible. That's the other thing. Good to know. Good to know. Any other questions? Let me see if I have any questions. Any other questions on mortgages, mortgage investing? No. Okay. Feedback, suggestions for future events. You guys like what you see here today? I mean, I have my thoughts on how the format could be improved a bit, but before I give you my thoughts, I'd be interested to see if anyone has feedback, ideas, suggestions, likes, dislikes. Thumbs up. Okay, we like that. We like thumbs up. Okay. So my thought is, first of all, that what I used to do in Toronto before COVID is I actually ran weekly real estate meetups. And we targeted real estate professionals and real estate enthusiasts, real estate investors. So any stage, if you just want to know, learn, and the types of presentations you saw here today, real estate related, would be involved. I think that probably we only need a half an hour of networking at the beginning because it was a long wait from 9 to 10 o'clock. I don't know if mornings are the best time to do it or not. Personally, I like the mornings. But and also in the future, if there's going to be live music, and I love live music, so I probably would not be the guy playing. I would bring in another musician so that I could be out socializing and talking with people. So format might be 9 to 9:30 networking, or your breakfast special if Georgian Circle were just support that again, because usually that's a deal that they only offer on weekends, right? $8.99 breakfast with unlimited coffee. 9 to 9:30 networking, order breakfast. 9:30 to 10 or 10:15, two maybe 20-minute presentations. And then you can hang around, network, and then go on your day. That's what I'm thinking. You're shaking your head. Sounds reasonable. Okay. Yeah. All right. So no questions online. So we're going to end the broadcast and was recorded. So if you know anybody, either the people on, we're gonna send it out. Actually, I'm gonna send it out to my database. If you're not getting my emails, let me know your email address if you want to get them. And yeah, so thanks everybody very much for coming. I don't think we have to leave yet. I know they're opening the doors now to everyone. So if you want to hang around and chit chat, great. Love to have further conversations with all of you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Sean. Thanks very much, Amanda
Thank you.
and Kelly, Joe, and everybody in the restaurant. See you next time. Bye.